Hello, I'm Daniel Himes, and I will be going over using Netmiko to get started with network automation right now. Most of the blogs and presentations I've seen on network automation are geared towards larger companies with lots of buy-in, lots of people that have lots of system skills. There's probably programmers on board. Um, they have really complex solutions, but nothing that your average network engineer can get working by themselves. This is targeting that, trying to get you up and kicking on network automation and give you a starting point that you can hit right now. Let's get started. Finding blogs and such with lots of buzzwords are really easy. Finding something that you can actually deploy as a new person to network automation can be very difficult. Um, and when I started inside the department, I didn't have any buy-in. A lot of the people felt threatened, and no one outside of the department was interested in taking up more work to try and get this whole network automation thing off the ground. As a result, it can be kind of difficult to get servers, software, people with Linux skills, any kind of budget, or anyone that knows anything about programming. And when you can find solutions, they have a tendency to be overly complex. Fortunately, that's not entirely necessary. What do you need then? Well, we're going to assume that you can get a Windows PC that your desktop management team is planning on throwing away. You need someone with uh, good CLI skills with the routers and switches, and you need someone with a passing knowledge or better of Python. With luck, you can find an intern or maybe someone who's trying to escape help desk with this skill set. If you want to do it, more power to you. Kirk Byers has a free Python class geared toward network automation intro. There's also tons of free websites, training, videos, etc., scattered all over the place. Um, there's also the NTC Slack channel that has a lot of really helpful people. Um, I did not go to school for any of this. I learned via free websites and asking lots of questions on Reddit. So there's not all that much you actually need to get started. So basically, you don't need a lot of the things that you probably think you do need. You don't need lots of Linux skills, database skills, system integration skills, or a big important source of truth. We're still going to have a little source of truth that will have the intended state of the network, but we are not using Nautobot or uh, Netbox or anything like that at this point in time. I'm mainly mentioning all that because the source of truth is an important concept and giving you something to Google once you're ready for the next state, for the next steps. We're going to be doing everything we can to reduce the learning curve. We're going to be using Netmiko. It just hits the router switches CLI. So if you already know people who are good with the CLI, just pair them up with your person who knows a little bit of Python, and you should be able to make your first tool without too many issues. We're also going to be removing the need for your team to install and use Python by making a chatbot to make everything easily accessible and usable. I know that sounds scary, but as you see when we go over it, it's really not all that bad. Why Netmiko, you might ask? Well, because you already know a large portion of it. All Netmiko is a way to SSH or telnet into a router. The router cannot tell the difference between a Netmiko connection or a PuTTY connection. So if you already know the commands to send with PuTTY, you already know the commands to send with Netmiko. This lets you concentrate on the Python part and not any APIs or anything along those lines. Also, there's a good chance that at least some of you watching this video have gear that is old enough that it only does Telnet uh, and doesn't support SSH, much less have RESTconf configured all over your network. Also, Netmiko already has built-in support for all of the major vendors, which will save you a large headache as you go forward. We should also look at making a chatbot. This drastically improves usability inside and outside of your department. This way no one has to struggle to get Python working on their PC. While it does sound really scary, it's actually pretty darn easy. This is known as ChatOps. If you want to Google it, I can speak for a long time on ChatOps, but basically it is just making tools easily available via a chat program. So just to show you that the chatbot is not particularly scary, I wanted to show you the main heart of the code for this chatbot. In my case, I'm using Slack. All we are doing is a few functions. One to join the channel that it will be monitoring. One to post a message to Slack, so when when they ask for something, it can reply back, and get the last message so that it can constantly look and see if you have asked it something. Basically, you just run a while loop that says get last message. As long as the last message is not something that it needs to respond to, it ignores it. If it is, it runs the program that you tell it to, and then it just posts the message, the results of that request back to Slack. That is really all we're doing here. Very easy. So what should your starting point look like? Well, the best program is one that works. It doesn't have to be fancy at all. My first big program ran on about 30,000 different text files. One for each command I ran on each device. It was not fancy, but it worked just fine. As I got better, I worked my way up to SQLite and then up to MySQL. But working is way more important than fancy. So there are a few things I would avoid doing with my tool. I would avoid making changes. There's a whole bunch of extra logic that goes into making changes that you probably don't want to mess with when you're first starting out. Personally, I would use Ansible or some equivalent for when you're making changes. Also, if you don't have a lot of buy-in, trying to convince people to let this random program you built make changes is going to be very difficult. And also, if you do manage to build buy-in, nothing's going to kill that buy-in faster than saying, oops, my automation actually took out the data center. Another thing to be careful of is taking input from the user and putting it into the router or switch. Say your program prompts for a IP address and they decide to put in 1.1.1.1. Line return, right erase. Enough line returns to get past the confirmation. Reload, enough line returns to get past the confirmation. This would be a bad thing because they just took out a router and or switch. If you can get enough buy-in to get a systems account and lock that systems account down in TACACS so it can only do the very few things that you want it to do, I would highly recommend that just because people being jerks can be tricky. and it's best to just give these kind of things the least amount of power possible. So if you're not making changes, what should your tool be doing? In my opinion, one of the most valuable things you can do is pulling data. As long as you're not doing show tech or something along those lines, you can't really cause an issue even if you accidentally run show IP int brief on a router 1,000 times. There's not going to be any downside, and you spend just as much time pulling data out of your network as pretty much anything else. So there's a lot of material there for you to automate. So for example, let's try automating those commands that the entire team runs whenever there's an outage. They always start logging into all the devices, checking the CPU usage, digging through logs for the lines of interest, checking device uptime, uh, making sure that all the devices are up and that they can connect to them, looking at the routing protocol neighborships to make sure that they're up and that they haven't been flapping lately, checking ports for drops, errors, or high usage, actually pinging stuff to make sure that nothing is down, things like this, things that you just constantly do that everyone on the team is going to run. Those make great targets for things to automate. So for these, you're probably going to know them better for your environment than I will. These are the tasks that you want to automate for people outside of your team. These are the tasks that people come to you and ask you to do, or other people on your team. So some examples I came up with were things like finding MAC addresses. Desktop management asks you to find a particular MAC address for a device they lost, or sysadmin has the IP address but for a server, but they don't know the other information they need to get it on, like the VLAN number, subnet mask, default gateway, or just pulling what VLANs are going to which VM servers. These are the things that people are interrupting you to try and do. We are trying to give them some self-help tools. So those are some of the things you could do to increase your buy-in. For the external buy-in, we've built some self-service tools so that they don't have to fill out tickets and interrupt you. For internal buy-in, we sped up our troubleshooting. We have more complete troubleshooting as the program won't forget step 3 on the 18th device that you hit. We also should be having less busy work and fewer interruptions because your external departments are now using your self-service tools. It's also helpful if you have your tool keep a log just so that you know which teams are using your automation so you can better target it, and it helps show that it's actually worthwhile. You're interested in this, but you don't actually know how much you can actually get working in a short amount of time. Well, I sat down one Saturday and built a one-day demo. There was no cost to anything I did. I implemented some basic network troubleshooting, such as checking the CPU usage, the NTP data, checks the BGP neighborships, runs through the logs for lines of interest, such as OSPF, BGP, and EIGRP events, and looks for indications of a layer 2 loop. You can also pull data down about an IP address. This is just a one-day demo I built, 12 hours. I've done these kind of things before, so don't expect it to only take you one day, but it's a good demo of what is fairly achievable by pretty much anyone. With all that said, let's see the demo. You can see here that I already have the Slack bot started. Over here on the left are all of the devices in the network. Just to keep the output down, I went ahead and commented out a whole bunch of devices so that we only have R1 left. So this is the intended state of the network, and we are going to check and make sure that that is what that the network is as it's supposed to be. So let's start with troubleshooting the network. You can see it SSHing to the device. It is pulling the CPU data. It's checking to make sure that NTP is synced, which it is not. It is listing the IP address that it's trying to connect to, which as you can see is the device listed, the IP address listed for the device. You can see the timestamp that it is, what the timestamp was when the command was run, and the time zone, just to make matching up the timestamps for the messages a little bit easier. You can see that BGP is not set up correctly or not working correctly because 12.12.12 is not active. It also runs through the logs looking for a bunch of commands. And you can see that EIGRP has recently come up on a bunch of neighbors, as has BGP. And that's about it for the quick troubleshoot. Let's find an IP address. 192.168.13.25. And once again, it starts SSHing to devices because it only knows about one device. It is only checking the one. So it finds that R1 has a interface on 192.168.13.1 with a subnet mask of 255.255.255.0. So this IP does fall in that range. If I had more than a day, I would also check for HSRP, VRRP, the various subnetting first hop redundancy protocols. And I said earlier that this is considerably faster than doing it all by hand, and I would like to prove that. So let's uncomment that out and see how fast it can be. And this is not multi-threaded, so it is only hitting one device at a time. If you have a whole bunch of devices, you'll probably want to look at multi-threading, but for this small lab, that should be plenty fast. So in the time it took me to talk about that, I was able to hit R1 through R5 and also home switch. So 6 devices in that amount of time. I hope this has been helpful and has given you some ideas. Thank you. Bye.